The Raptors surprise in Game 5. And how about those Minnesota Twins? The second time this year, Teddy. 8 home runs in a single ball game. Let's get right to the hot topics of the day. Kawhi and the Raptors 1 win away from the finals. How about the way it started off yesterday, Teddy? Red-hot Milwaukee, an inferno atmosphere, an 18-point lead. But who's the team that closed the strongest? That was the Toronto Raptors. And how about Fred VanVleet, who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn? 7 for 9 from 3. The Raptors 1 game away, Teddy, from a finals appearance. How about that?
Sure, and a shocking finals appearance considering how the first 2 games of this series went. I didn't see last night coming, I'll tell you flat out. Under an easy right side last night, we saw a bunch of sharp money come in on the under from the get-go as that total opened. And frankly, the total in this one, never in doubt. The only thing under better sweating was another overtime or double overtime of the way they lost Game 3. But under a clear right side. The pace was slow. The defensive acumen for both squads was spot on throughout the course of the night. And in a lot of ways, Milwaukee took Toronto out of their game. They kept the Raptors from getting in the paint and getting easy looks. So what did Toronto do? They drained 18 three-pointers, and that was the difference. And Kawhi and VanVleet were the difference. No question about it. But they weren't the only difference. They both played great for Toronto. And, throughout the course of the game, VanVleet, I can't count how many big threes he hit. And then Kawhi with all the plays down the stretch. But in a sense, the Bucks might have choked this one away. Brogdon screws up in the last 2 minutes. Middleton screws up in the last 2 minutes. And game on the line at home, it was the Raptors who made the plays, not the Bucks down the stretch to steal that one. Not to mention Aaron Rodgers proving he was unable to chug a beer.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that was part of the nice side banter there going back and forth with Bakhtiari and Rodgers. And even Christian Yelich got into the mood, but the one team that couldn't get back into the mood was the Bucks. Even they had that fast start, Teddy, up a couple points there. I believe it was 10-point lead at the end of the first quarter, up at halftime. You saw Toronto start to take the game away, but even yet, you see that home team surge at the end of the ball game, a deep 3 by Lopez, which ends up tying the ball game. You thought they would take the momentum from there, but big shot after big shot, and Kawhi Leonard, worth his weight in gold in the series, taking it back to Game 6. And we talked about it yesterday, Teddy. Look, I didn't see this coming here, and neither did you, thinking that maybe the Bucks would be able to close out in Game 6. Huge game coming back now. The pressure, although, does shift back to Toronto now as a favorite when we haven't seen them play that role so far yet in the series, Teddy.
No question. And when we look at the line for Game 6, we'll preview this game a little bit later in the show in detail. But when you look at the line for Game 6, the betting markets certainly aren't viewing Milwaukee as a dead team yet. When I read you some Giannis quotes in a few minutes, you might think the same thing.
Teddy, say it with me here. It used to be a famous song. Me and you were old enough to remember this stuff. Ain't no stopping us now. The Marlins are on the move. Teddy, 6 in a row, all underdogs. The same type of MO used again yesterday. Their bats are silent. They just wait, lie in wait to get to that bullpen. They finally get the green. And how about a grand slam in the top of the 9th inning to put them over the top? 6 straight winners, 6 straight underdog winners, going for 7 straight today against a team in turmoil there, those Nationals. Just an interesting part, but with a long baseball season, Teddy, we get to see some of this stuff.
Sure, and Miami with their 10-30 start was on pace to be as bad as the 1962 New York Mets, the worst team in MLB history. Well, there was the 1899 Cleveland Spiders who only won 20 games, but that's a little bit before my time. All that being said, when a bad team comes to life, there's money to be made. Look at those underdog prices. Plus 190, plus 115, plus 180, plus 100, plus 103, plus 133. Oh, they're dogs again tonight in Washington. 0-8 in Richard's first starts. In Richard's first 8 starts, 2-0 his last 2. Hey, when a bad team comes to life like Miami is doing, they're a one-way team for me. They'll cool off eventually. This hot streak won't go on indefinitely. But for the time being, the Marlins aren't on your ticket. Well, maybe you should rethink that ticket.
Teddy, Boyd was really good yesterday for Detroit, and you saw Richards come in, not that good of, metrics, even advanced or current statistics that he had. They waited around, and you saw it coming. The bottom of the 8th inning, it's a 1-0 game. A single by Miguel Cabrera drives in a run to make it 2-0. The next play was a double play when you could have tacked on even more runs. But always, this is what, as a gambler, Teddy, you've seen it. I've seen it many times again. In the 9th inning, all I do in a close game is say, bring the closer in. Can we just get the first out? And, of course, it was an error that started that inning off. We've seen it so many times again. But, again, We'll see if that 7 straight wins by the Marlins can actually get underway tonight in Washington. Let's talk a little bit of NFL football, Teddy. 2019 NFL team preview. Guess who it is? Those New York Football Giants. Last year, certainly not having a good season. But let's take a look at some odds this year and then rehash back. Cowboys, 60-1 to win the 2019 championship, 28-1 to win the NFC, and the Giants' 2019 team total, Teddy, 5.5. Tough division they're going to play in this year. Finished 5-11 last year, and a paltry 1-5 in the division. Not much went right for him last year. Still sitting in limbo. Some thought they should have went to quarterback. End up going Saquon Barkley. Now you see they get the quarterback of the future this year. You have an aging, older, quarterback not playing at the level he used to play. How soon before we see Daniel Jones? Certainly going to creep into it. Also letting some big-name free agents, I shouldn't even say free agent, big-name players on their club get away. Dave Gettleman, what are we doing here, Teddy, with those New York Giants?
Well, when we start to look back at the Giants from last year, the number one thing that really stands out is how big an underachiever this team was. They outgained their opponents on a yards per play basis last year, 0.1 yards per play. They were 0.4 yards per play better when they ran the football than their opponents. Eli Manning's QB rating 92.4 not good, but not a disaster. Opposing quarterbacks only 89.8, so the Giants had an edge in QB rating. They were +2 in turnovers last year. You look at all these stats and you say, how the hell did this team go 5-11? Real simple. They had 8 losses by a touchdown or less, and they had a 1-7 start where they lost a bunch of close games, and the rest of the season was garbage time. They also played a tougher than average schedule. The schedule eases a little bit this year, easier than it was a season ago. Personnel-wise, however, there are a lot of questions about, are the Giants going to try to put something for a final season for Eli, or is Daniel Jones going to win this job out of camp, and all of a sudden the Giants have a rookie QB? And nobody knows that right now. We do know that, obviously, when you're losing a talent like OBJ, that you're going to, who is a unique talent at the NFL level. When you lose a guy like that, there is plenty of room for others to step up. I'll just put it that way. But when it comes to skill position talent at the wide receiver position right now, they bring in Golden Tate, who basically the same price or close to the price they were going to pay for OBJ. They get an aging receiver who doesn't make plays the way that he did. You have QB controversy. On the offensive line, you bring in a Kevin Zeitler. I thought that was a good move, potentially. Certainly Eli is not a guy, or Daniel Jones, whoever wins the job or gets the job. We're not talking about the more mobile quarterbacks of the world. You look at the draft, pick up Dexter Lawrence, also in the first round at defensive tackle. They didn't need a defensive tackle. I like DeAndre Baker, the cornerback out of Georgia. They could certainly use some help in the secondary. Julian Love, the 4th rounder out of Notre Dame, might be a guy to watch there as well. But the draft after Jones, a lot of defensive playmakers from a defense that wasn't particularly good last year. Some of that was injury related. I look at the Giants as a potential overachiever this year when it comes to season win totals. I'm only looking to bet the Giants over in a media circus that has every move that they made in the offseason being, oh, ridiculous. Oh, what are they doing? Get them, and the Giants stink. It might be all right. I'm certainly not betting them under 5.5 wins.
Ted, I got a question for you on that 5.5 wins. If we're taking a look, because, that whole draft mantra, sit behind a quarterback, and if you're not going to be a good football team, usually that guy's going to end up playing. You saw it last year with Cleveland. You see it a lot. Going into the season with 5.5 wins, if the Giants, I don't even want to say get out hot, because we even saw back in the day with Kurt Warner and Eli Manning when he was a rookie. Eventually that rookie's going to take over. Does that come into play when you're looking to bet the over, figuring yourself, Teddy, that you think Eli's going to get the majority of the playing time, that they can hang around that 500 mark, which it makes it a legitimate prospect that Eli can continue and maybe even finish the season? Or are you saying, you know what, I don't think there's much of a drop-off between Eli and the rookie coming in to get that 5.5 wins?
It's an interesting question, and it's not a question that I have a great answer for prior to training camp. This is the kind of thing. The Giants are not a team I'm going to bet right now, their win total. I want to hear the buzz. I'm going to watch Jones play. I'm going to watch Eli play. And after the first 2 or 3 preseason games, we'll have an idea of what this team's actually going to look like. There's upside, but there's also downside. I'm not convinced that Jones will come in and lead the Giants to a successful season. I wouldn't expect that if he wins the job out of camp.
Yep.